Kelly from One Stop Playgrounds, and we're happy to once again be a part of the Municipalities of Saskatchewan Convention. This is our 11th year attending the convention, and even though this year is from a distance, we hope to meet up with you at our booth virtually. Being from Saskatchewan, we know that our fellow citizens thrive when we're able to spend time outdoors enjoying the parks and recreation opportunities that are available to us. And it's especially true this year. We've all seen the vital role that outdoor spaces play to keep everybody happy and healthy. We want to work with Saskatchewan communities to bring quality, innovative recreation solutions to your neighborhoods. We are proud to offer a full line of Canadian-made products that is unmatched by any company in Saskatchewan. When you choose One Stop Playgrounds, you're choosing local people and local products, which include playgrounds, spray parks, outdoor rinks, and more. We also know what a struggle the process can be, so we're here to help from the very start, assisting with budget and design, and also helping access the latest grants and fundraising so your project can move forward. We take every effort to focus on the details, big and small, that lead to a successful project. But our service doesn't end when the fun starts. You can rely on us for warranty and repair if problems do arise. Please visit our booth. We'd be happy to discuss your next project.
Thank you for joining us for the annual 2021 Convention Education Session, Governance 101, What I Wish I Knew in My First Year. Over the course of the session, you're going to hear from 3 elected officials who have recently retired in 2020. So grab a pen and grab a paper and take notes for this engaging conversation with former Yorkton Mayor Bob Maloney, former Warman Mayor Cheryl Spence, and former Regina City Councillor Mike O'Donnell.
Well, I was born in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and I spent a little time growing up in Churchbridge. Then we moved to Saskatoon, moved back to Yorkton when I was in grade 9, and since then I've been a lifelong Yorkton resident.
I have lived in Warman, Saskatchewan for just about 40 years. I moved to Warman from Saskatoon back in the day when Warman was very small and looked very different.
A total of 17 years in all. I spent 9 years as a councillor and the last 8 years as mayor of the city of Yorkton.
I've been on council for, I have to change that wording, for 20 years, 6 years as a councillor and 14 years as a mayor. It was a wonderful experience.
14 years, just retiring now.
Some of the positions I've held, well, as a councillor, I've been involved in many, many different committees and organizations and things like that. And once I became involved in council, I continued a lot of those roles. In the last few years, as mayor, I've been involved in some regional committees, some provincial and national committees. I was involved in SREDA, that's the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Association. That's based out of Saskatoon, and I was the regional chair for that group. I was also one of the tri-chairs for the Prairie Rivers Reconciliation Committee, which is a new group, only a couple years old. I was very pleased to be selected to represent our region on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which is a national committee. And there I served for about 6 years. I was vice chair on their Safety and Police Committee, and then also chair on their Increasing Women's Involvement in Municipal Government, which I was very proud to be involved with because it's something that's really close to my heart.
So I think that having been retired from my other careers, it afforded me an opportunity on council to kind of lead some of the larger jurisdictions. So things like conferences that we had on infrastructure or the Olympic torch relay, chairing planning commission and a couple of other committees were what I did mostly on council. And then for municipalities of Saskatchewan was on the board and then eventually on the executive representing Regina and Saskatoon.
Certainly, I was a councillor, of course, to start things out. I ran because I was encouraged by the current mayor to run because of a big project that was coming up, and he was trying to find support for that. So I ran for council. I never really coveted the role of mayor. Our current mayor of the day was a person that I trusted, and I thought he was doing a good job, but he was stepping down because of his job. Encouraged me to run, so I ran for mayor. And as elected mayor, I became, of course, a role on the City Mayor's Caucus. I was elected VP of Cities, which I was very grateful for. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great people to work with. And, of course, coming with that election of VP of Cities, a seat on the board of SUMA.
It's probably different than what I thought I was getting into. You realize they really do have an impact on your community. That's true, although things sometimes can move a little bit slower than you really want. I was always taken aback by when I would represent the city at cultural events or sporting events, the position of responsibility that you had. People listened, people were very respectful, and that they were really looking to hear what you had to say and get that bigger picture of the city. So I think more than anything, it was that large view of the community that you had, not so much fixing potholes or alleys.
Well, I think the key lessons you learn once you get involved, there's a lot of numbers. You learn not to be afraid by numbers. You learn how to read a spreadsheet if you didn't already know coming in. And the big thing is that you can't have any fear. You have to do what you feel is right for your community. Talking to residents is fine. Talking to other members of council is fine. But at the end of the day, you have to make decisions about what's best for the community. And I think that's something that especially new members can struggle with a little.
Two really important ones that I'd like to share is I think we need to listen more than we speak. A lot of times when someone's talking to us, we're trying to formulate an answer even before they're finished talking. And as a result, we lose some of what they're telling us. So I think if we can just shut off our mind to what we want to say and listen totally to what they're saying, we will get a lot more of the conversation and be able to do a lot more because of that. So listen more than you speak. Now, the second one is really important for elected officials, and it is a motto that we had in the city of Warman from the time I was mayor, and it was heads in, hands out. And some of you have probably already heard this motto, but it was a motto that we held dearly. And what it means is, as councillors, you are policy builders, and you are not there to drive the grader. You're not there to tell your managers how to do their jobs. We're there directly to look at the bigger picture, to form policies that make your communities even better than they are. And you have to remember, we have one employee, and that's the CAO. And those are the conversations you can have with your CAO, but nobody else. It's very important to follow this motto because your CAO is the person that you have those conversations with. And if you're unhappy or if you want to see things change, talk to him. You don't want to lose his confidence or the confidence of your organizations by stepping over that line. So always remember, heads in, but hands out.
Well, I think the first year, of course, was a real learning curve because, as I said, the numbers are big. I was in charge of a $6 million budget, and all of a sudden the budget is $50 million. So when you're looking at big projects, things like that, it can be a little scary. But listen and learn was really good for me. I think there were only 2 new members when I was first elected to our council in Yorkton. So I had time to be on the sidelines and learn and watch and listen and kind of get the feel of things. Some councils don't have that opportunity because you can get 5, 6, or 7 new people in the room, and so you don't have that time for that learning curve and slow growth. You're just kind of thrown into it.
Really good question. I had no idea what my role on council really entailed. I really didn't. I became involved because I thought it was another way to serve my community. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing. So I was pretty surprised. I went in there really wanting to see a lot of youth programming be enacted in our community. And of course, I wanted to lower taxes. Don't we all want to lower taxes? That always seems to be one of our goals. I thought everyone would love my ideas. Well, that doesn't always happen around that council table. So what I learned, number one, is you can't take things personally. I learned that in the very beginning. Just because someone didn't like my idea doesn't mean I should take that personally. And if you bring something to council and it isn't received the way you thought, try another way. Bring it back another time with more information. I just know that as my years went on, I could see, number one, how important taxes were and how the vital tool that is to keep and grow our communities. It's necessary. And I know we all want to be very diligent when it comes to the public purse, but I know the idea of just cutting taxes, when you're a newbie, a lot of times you think you can do that, and why wouldn't you? But once you've been there a while, you see all the reasons why you can't. So I think as time goes on, you will learn lots of really good lessons. And those are a couple that I learned.
I think everybody, when they're first elected, is keen and wants to get going and get doing things right away. I think the first lesson I learned is that, first of all, I better listen. Second of all, I better understand process. And three, I need to make sure that I create relationships with the other people that are selected and on council so that we, in fact, work together as a team. So it's a little bit of slow down before you can hurry up. And then I think it's also an understanding of all of the business lines that the city has, that a corporation has, and making sure that you understand how those things work.
Our council, we were very fortunate the years that I've been involved to have a respectful group. I believe it's always vital for you to be respectful around that council table, respectful when you're outside that room. You may not agree with each other. In fact, you shouldn't. You're going to have different ideas, but it doesn't mean that you can't respect the person with a varied idea that's not similar to yours. I don't think anyone in your community wants to see you squabble around that council table or to see you slam fellow councilmen or staff members in the public or in the media. So be respectful all the time in your meetings and outside your meetings.
That's really an important concept. And the first thing is that you don't have any decision that is of a personal nature. You make sure that you deal in policy and that you don't, if someone disagrees with you, you don't make it personal against them. However, those things do happen. So the way that I always dealt with that was, one, to have a one-on-one with the person where we disagreed and try and talk it through. Never wanted to embarrass anybody on the floor of council, never wanted to embarrass anybody in front of the other members of council. So the idea of one-on-one, privacy, and respect to me were very, very important. And as we only can make decisions in the public forum, people will always see that. But I think how we treat one another needs to be affected greatly, both in the public forum and separate from that.
Well, I think it's really important to treat it as a business. It's council business. It's not personal, and I think everybody who's has been voted for and elected to office should come to grips with that, because it's never personal. It's only about the business of running your community, your town, your village, or your city, and these should not be personal questions. And that's why respect and debate is so important, because in debate things can get heated. But if it's kept respectful, then I think everybody can get along once the lights are out and the meeting's over. When you cross that line, that's when you're making enemies, and you have people saying, well, I'm not voting for this because he didn't vote for that. And that's when councils can really start to fray. And, and I think it's important to have a council whisperer, somebody you can talk to who can maybe try and bring some people together. And I know SUMA has, or municipalities of Saskatchewan now, has started to fill that role. Councils that are struggling can reach out, can find somebody that can come out and talk to them. And I think that's really important, because that keeping it respectful in debate, I think, is the one biggest thing that everybody who comes to the table should learn.
14 years is a long time, and so it's sometimes it's hard to go back to that period of time. There was lots of innocence involved, maybe some naivety. I think the key thing is listen first, speak later, and make sure you are well versed on the files that are before you.
Well, I think direction to administration. Direction has to be clear. Without that clarity of direction, administration is often wondering, what did they say? What did they mean? And that's something that I think all councils wrestle with. And I know in serving as mayor, finding that focus is so important, because if you don't have that focus, if you don't have that clarity of direction to give your administration, things can go sideways on you in a hurry. And so I would advise people to take your time, say what you mean what you say, and make sure that administration understands what you're saying and how you want it done.
It would be to ask more questions. I think many times when you're sitting around that table and something comes and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I really want to know more. I want to ask, but I don't want to look foolish. Don't think that way. The more questions you ask, the better you learn, the more you learn. Always ask your question. If you don't understand, ask the question. The other thing is, I think making sure you are prepared, and being prepared means you have a lot of reading to do. Read your information at least twice, and read it long before your meeting, at least 3 days before your meeting. So if you have any questions or things that you need clarification on, you can go back to your administration and get some more information. It's so vitally important to be prepared. And the only way you can do that is by reading the information that you're provided with. That's how you will make the best decisions that you can, is by being prepared and asking those questions too. Well, what surprised me was that there wasn't more women there. I guess, number one, when I first got on council, I remember someone saying to me, well, you're a politician now. Now that I realized I was a municipal politician, I was really taken back on how many women there was around the decision-making table. There wasn't enough. We weren't well represented at all. And when I think about how important the local decisions are, the decision that you're making around that table is vital to have equal representation, or representation from women and from other diverse groups. So I think that was something that was really shocking for me, that there wasn't more women involved or even able to be involved, and that there wasn't more opportunity to engage and encourage women to become involved. So I've been very proud to be trying to spearhead that as much as I can. So that's something that I hope people out there will continue to do, and that's to get more women involved, because we need it. You need to have a balance around your tables.
Well, I think my biggest surprise, not everybody thinks the way that I think. Not everybody goes through the process of going from point A to point B to coming to a decision that I do. And that kind of surprise, it's a surprise when you're debating something. And the first time I was there, we were debating something. It was a small issue. And I thought, well, this is a slam dunk. And then we vote on the question, and I put up my hand, and my side lost. And I'm thinking, what are these people thinking? So after the meeting, the city manager approached me and said, Bob, don't forget to debate. And I said, well, I thought it was a slam dunk. And he said, never assume that. And I think that's an important thing for a councillor to come to grips with. Don't assume that everybody is thinking the way you are on a situation, and be prepared to debate it.
This is an easy question. I was approached many times throughout all of my years to settle neighbor versus neighbor disputes. I did not see that coming, and yet it became a regular part of what was going on. You are looked upon as a person who has responsibility and, to some degree, I guess, power, and so they would phone or ask you to come over and say, the fence is off, the garage shouldn't be where it is, I need you to pick this and pick my side, by the way, and solve it. So a lot of things about mediation and dealing with people's relationships were part of the deal.
Well, I think for sure, and I know during COVID this is most difficult, but I think having those opportunities to meet with other elected officials are very helpful, because you can compare notes, you can talk, you build bridges and friendships that help you as you go on. I think even just the information that you gather from being involved with all the municipalities that we're able to tap into is also vitally important. I do think having that I can say parent group, it's a really good go-to place if you're looking for information. I know we in our council have used that forum many times. Your webinars have been great. Many of our council members are on those webinars all the time. There's learning opportunities. There's many things that we're not sure of. And so having those learning opportunities are so beneficial. So thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do to keep us informed and keep us trained and keep us feeling confident for the job that we're doing.
So there's a difference, I think, between some of the larger cities where we have a lot of staff, and we often feel that that's where our first line of defense goes to and so on. But also in a larger community like Regina, the notion of advocacy matters a lot to us. And so how do we not only advocate for what it is we want for Regina, but also for our province, and how we do that with the province. So I think the really key thing for us is advocacy from here. But we also understand the notion of services. If we can all band together, that's always a good thing. If we can all band together in terms of purchases, that's really a good thing. Even as simple as lawyer services and so on, those things all matter greatly, no matter the size of your community. But probably to some of our smaller cities and smaller towns, that's really where there's an asset. So how do we get those folks engaged? It's always a constant thing about education and making sure people understand what's available to them. The convention is an exceptionally welcoming place between the social and the educational. So I think it's just getting a hold of the new councillors right away and saying, you're welcome, we'll help you, come and join us. So. I think it means a couple of things. First of all, to the candidates, I think what it means is that you have a certain window of opportunity, that you have things to offer, and people are watching and looking to see that. So, you need to work hard, get at it right away, and realize that someday that you too may not be there. So that's one. Two, I think the wholesale change is rather interesting. In Regina, we did not see that coming, but it has to be welcome because people want to have different folks lead. And I think in our case, having a lady lead is an absolutely wonderful change that occurred. And we have other younger folks. We've seen a changing demographic. We've seen some different cultures put their name forward. So that whole notion of diversity and so on is both speaking to the people, but the people are saying it back, that that's really what we want. I think it's really, really healthy. And I see nothing but a bright future in terms of if you see that it can be changed, you can beat an incumbent, then therefore more people may come forward. Healthy.
That remains a mystery to me. When I look at councillors I've served with, I've seen some really great councillors lose on election day. And I've seen just in the 2020 election, almost entire councils lose. And, I'm at a loss, really, to understand what the electorate is looking for, like if they're looking for, cuts in taxes or less taxes, or it would be good if they would talk to their councils. I think that's incredibly important. If you have an issue, talk to a councillor. Pick up the phone and call a mayor. Like, I got very few phone calls from people that were angry about a project or, and without that feedback, it's difficult to get a pulse for what's going on out there. And but I think people should know that, when you change an entire council, boy, that learning curve for the next group coming in is really sharp. And with the infrastructure deficit, I'm sure everybody's sick about hearing about infrastructure deficit, but it's real. It's out there. And, when people say, well, we don't want higher taxes, well, do you want your services? And that's what people have to come to grips with. But I'm at a loss with what voters want from their councils, because if people want something different, my phone should have been ringing. Phones should have been ringing across Saskatchewan. If people were dissatisfied and they wanted something different, they have to communicate that to the people who are on their council, because, the councils we've just elected, they're here for 4 years. So you best make sure that they understand why you voted for new people and what changes you wanted. Try and communicate that. I know some of the newer, younger people that I'd worked with in the past 4 years, extremely frustrated about trying to get input from voters. But I can only speak to York, then our turnout was 26%. And sometimes it feels like that. There's only 26% of the people who really care about what's going on. And because you're not getting that input from the community. And when you don't get that input, then you're left to make decisions that you feel are the best you can.
Our area, there hasn't been a lot of changes. There was a couple, only because there was a couple vacant seats. But I do think that our community has been fairly satisfied with the job that their elected council's been doing. I think it's always good to have some new faces and new voices around the table. I know in our council, there's some new ones in the neighboring councils. I just think it's always good to have a new face and a new voice, because they bring something there that we may not have heard in a while, or something that we may not have thought about. It's good to have some of those new, fresh ideas around your table. So I sure encourage it. And I'm really happy to see during election time, a full slate of people vying for those positions. They're important. And I think it's really good when we go through that process. So yeah, I think having a few changes is a really good thing for every community. Our area has had a very strong regional planning group for a number of years now. And we have built a partnership that is evolved into friendships as well. So it makes it easier when you need to compromise a little bit. And I do think that if you're going to be working with your neighbors, you need to learn to compromise, because what you think may not be what they think. So what you need may not be what they need. And if you can come together with compromise, I think there's so much that you can accomplish. I know in our area, we've taken the years of talking that one step farther in walking that talk and actually working on some joint projects. And we're all proud of that, because it took a few years for us to actually feel comfortable to be able to take tax dollars from our community and put it in a project that doesn't only benefit our community, but it benefits surrounding communities as well. I think our mindset needs to shift a bit. There's not enough dollars out there for us to be doing the same sort of things in a community, in my community, and then the same sort of thing in a community that's only a couple kilometers away. You need to share in your resources. You need to share in your projects. We will only make our region that much stronger if we do that. And I am so absolutely proud of the regional partners we have in this area, because they have made it a priority, and they've also compromised in areas where it was difficult at times. But again, that mutual respect, you may not agree, but respect what each other's trying to do, and get out there and try and form some of those partnerships, because man, they are so valuable.
We have a responsibility in a city, or we have a responsibility in a town to look beyond just our own borders, because we all know that all the services that we provide in a city or a town mean that we draw people from around us. So that's a good thing. That's a great thing. That helps us thrive. Having said that, we also want to make sure that they're looked after as well. So I think it should be just not what we should do to look at, say, wastewater, water systems, and all that kind of stuff. It should be, why aren't we all cooperating to make sure that that is both healthy and sustainable? I think the notion of sustainability will drive us. Maybe we all can't have a pool, a hospital, and this store, but collectively we can make sure that all of those services are available to those around us, and that we all benefit. So the idea of welcoming people into your community, that's pretty standard in Saskatchewan. But the idea of cooperating on some of those other ventures needs to be enhanced, needs to be respected, and must be encouraged.
COVID-19 has really been different. When you look at the business community, we had business closures. We had the initial shutdown in March, And it affected businesses in a tremendous way, especially small businesses. And going forward, if a small business has somebody that gets COVID, and then the health authorities rightfully say, well, okay, these people all have to go home. Well, that means you have to close your small business. You're not Walmart. You don't have 300 people on your list to call to come in. So if you lose your staff, you have to shut down. So it's been incredibly hard for small business. Most of the larger businesses have been able to stay open. And, everybody talks, lockdown, no lockdown. There's all of this talk going on. And I think in some ways it's hurt the community. But for municipalities, our tax rolls are paid up. Residents have paid their taxes. Businesses are paying their taxes. I think as we move into 2021 and 2022, we might see more of the financial impact of COVID. But in the community of Yorkton, the impact has not been that great to this point. To the municipality, for local businesses, the story can be entirely different.
I would suggest to you that there are two significant features about this. The obvious one, and the one talked about, is the idea that in a municipality we are dependent on bricks and mortar. So we need to make sure that businesses can operate, do operate, employ our citizens, and can thrive. And while we've gotten over this first hump, I think that's really the challenge that we're going to see in the next year or so, and see how that goes. Hopefully, people will be supporting and that we'll thrive. The area that concerns me long term is the notion of, I'll call it isolation and mental health. By that I mean, one of the jobs that we have is to make sure there are places where people can gather. So we might build a hockey rink or a curling rink. We might have a theater. We might have a performing arts center. In Regina, we have a football stadium. And so that always is about bringing people together, building community, and making sure neighbor looks after neighbor. With what we're going through now and what we may be going through for a while, those things are all broken down and separated. And so my concern is that we have to not only look at how do we make sure people gather in a store or a restaurant, but how we gather as a community and build ourselves back up. Lots of talk about downtowns being affected, especially in our larger cities. And I think that's one part, but I think we're going to have to do a lot of work in the coming months and years, probably years, to make sure that we go back to the idea of maybe you can't shake your neighbor's hand, but you can do an elbow touch. You can make sure you smile when you don't have a mask on and make sure people are included and welcome. Honestly, that's my biggest concern about where we will go in the future. So,
our municipality did fairly well in the beginning, and I'm going to give the credit to our administration and staff. They were so adaptable. They were patient. They were very, very, very good. They kept the council apprised to anything that was going on in our community. In the beginning, we had conference calls with other electeds from other communities, whether it be the mayor or the councillors. We also had conference calls from the province. So we were keeping fairly up to date. But it was ever changing, as you know. It's COVID. Every day something changes, so it's hard to make a decision or say you're going to take this course of action, because maybe even by the end of the day it's going to change. So the one thing that we really did find hard in our municipality was the communication with the province or the SHA. And I know it was difficult for them, so I certainly don't want to slam them, because I know it's a difficult situation. I could see what they were going through, but we found that there could have been more interaction or conversation with the municipalities when they were making decisions that really affected our communities. Because if they changed a restriction, we needed to know about it so we could prepare for that. And we didn't always know about it before the residents did. And as a result, we scrambled and it made us look bad. And so I think going forward, communication is vital, so that we can give confidence to the people out there that they know what we're doing, and that we're planning the best we can together, because you don't want to have all these different camps doing different things, not during a time like now. We need to get together and support each other and work towards a common solution for this. So I think communicating together needs to be stronger, for sure. That would be my recommendation going forward. Better, clear messaging was needed, I think.
First of all, I think the City of Regina and Municipality of Saskatchewan are on the same page and same trajectory for the future. I think there's an acknowledgement about the importance of sustainability and environmental issues and so on, and how that how we can work together with the province to put that together is key. But so are social issues. I think this is a change. I think years ago we would have said social services or any other department will look after things like homelessness and drug issues and how that affects mental health and how our police services and so on operate. We all own that. So I think between a city like Regina, municipalities of Saskatchewan, and the province, and all the other agencies, it has to be collaborative. Otherwise, we're all going to lose out on this. We got to look after one another.
Well, I think when you look back at accomplishments, it's the accomplishments of your council. And I think as a mayor, I was able to bring people to consensus, and I think for any mayor, that's incredibly important. You have to be able to get things done. And I think even for the voting public, the report card is, did things get done? I mean, that's the only report card really for a city council. Too often, sometimes it becomes a popularity contest, and I've never understood that. To me, it's about the last 4 years. What got done? What didn't get done? What's your financial situation? And so those things are, to me, have always been important, and finding that consensus has been incredibly important. And I think owning your vote, I often hear, administration is leading the way, and councillors don't have, enough input. Councillors have all the input. I mean, we're the only ones who vote, and to me, it's incredibly important for councils to come to grip with the facts that it's your vote, you own that vote. Talk to members of the community, talk to people on council, but at the end of the day, it's your vote. You're the one responsible for it, and you should own that vote at the end of the day.
I've been a part of many accomplishments in my community. We've seen great strides in partnerships. And that is something that I am really, really proud of, because we have made partnerships in so many different areas. We have strong regional planning going on right now. Reconciliation is a huge priority in our area. We've just recently signed a reconciliation declaration that's had 28 partners as a part of the signatory. So that's something I'm very proud of. Locally, we have seen strong investment in our commercial sector. There's new schools. There's a joint recreation school project that in the Legends here, that's a great model for our province. We have built a stronger community through these partnerships. And as a result, people are flocking to our community. I feel Mormon is one of the fastest growing communities in our country and the fastest in Saskatchewan. And I think it's because of all this great work that we're doing in our community. It's a vibrant community. And I know anyone that's been here knows that. Come and visit us. We'd love to have you.
I think, especially for new councillors, understand your role. That is so critical. And, and I would advise all councils out there, if you haven't had somebody come in to talk to your group about their role, what is the role of a councillor? Like, it doesn't, it's almost like when you bring a baby home from the hospital, they don't come with written instructions. There is some good information out there on being a councillor and what's your role. Attending the municipalities conferences, watching this virtual conference is so important to try and learn what your role is. And stay in your lane. Don't try and be the city administrator. Don't try and be the town foreman. Stay in your lane. Look after what you're supposed to look after, and let the professionals do their job. I think that's entirely critical. And if you can find a council whisperer, somebody to come in and talk to you, somebody that you can call. I'm amazed that I haven't had more phone calls from people saying, "Hey, how do you deal with a problem, councillor?" Or how do you? Because there can be issues that come up, and there are people out there that can help. I know Saskatoon and Regina have been a tremendous resource for the city of Yorkton. We reach out when we need to, and I think more communities should be aware that the mayor of Yorkton will take your call. The mayor of Kamsack will talk to you, and getting together at convention, even a virtual convention, is so important, because you can share some of those stories, and what worked, what didn't work, and you can meet people, and I think that way we can all get through it a little easier.
I hope that what has happened by the time convention rolls around or just after is that all of the councils will sat down together and come up with a plan for what they want to do. Call it a strategic plan or an agreed upon principles that they'll operate on in the next while and stick to that. Two, I hope that what councils will do is be respectful of one another so that they understand that they're the very best candidates that were there. Make sure that you look after one another and respect each other, and that you listen to what your community has to offer. But also that when you make decisions, you don't make political decisions. I know that's difficult, and I know that that's common, but I think you have to focus on making decisions that are the best things for your community and your surrounding area, that are going to have a lasting long-term effect. You work from principles, you work from respect, you work from dignity, and then you'll always keep your head held high. As a councillor, you must be consistent. The people that were elected you because of who you are. Remain who you are. Be strong, and people aren't always going to love you, and people aren't always going to love you or like you. So that's okay. Be yourself and be strong. Keep your head held high.
Well, congratulations first. I know 4 months, but congratulations to each and every one of you. Always keep in mind your voices and concerns you've heard from your constituents during your campaigning. Now, sometimes we don't like campaigning, but I'm telling you, that is an excellent tool. And this year it was different. We had to campaign differently, but you still heard what people were thinking and some of the concerns and some of the ideas that they had. Keep that at the forefront of your mind, because it's important to know the vibe that's going on in your community. And that's how you find it usually, is when you're campaigning. When you're going door to door, when you're calling people, you hear what they have to say. You hear what the concerns of your community, you hear great ideas, and you need to try and take those further. I know the other thing that I think it's important to remember is to be humble. You were placed in this place of honor and responsibility by your constituents. Remember that their voices and the things that they tell you, their concerns that they have, are important, and you need to always make sure that you are working for your community and the common good, the common goals that your community has. And I know it's not always easy, but please stay humble and remember who elected you into that position you're in. You have a huge responsibility to them and your community. So all the best. I know that you will do well. Look at the resources that you have around you and have some fun with it too, because it's such an exciting time to be a part of something bigger, like a municipal council, being involved in Saskatchewan's municipalities. There's so many other elected people there that you can tap into some of their knowledge. So have a good time, have fun, and enjoy.
Well, there's so many things you come across over the years, but I think with experience comes the confidence. And so when you have confidence, and I think you get that through going through your packages, talking to your administration. If you're not sure of things, talk to your administrator, your city manager, other members of council. I was fortunate enough to work with a banker on our council, and so when it came to big numbers and issues around that, and interest rates and what the costs are going to be over the long term, and depreciation, I could talk to him. And you should always be ready to do that and willing to reach out. And I think in Saskatchewan it applies to everybody. Like in big cities, small cities, the only difference really is the decimal point. You get big projects, little projects, but the decision-making process is pretty much the same for all of them.
How much time it would have taken. When I first started, I didn't realize how much time it did take to be on council. And I think now they're trying to do a better job of informing new council members before they become new council members, just exactly what the job entails. I had no idea how much time it would take, and it does take a lot of time. It takes a commitment. And when you're elected by your peers, you want to make sure you're representing them to the best of your ability. And the only way you can do that is by giving it the time that it takes. So I think that's probably the one thing that I wish I would have had more information about, is how much time it takes.
I was constant over all of the years, coming to the understanding about the relationship between our municipality and the province of Saskatchewan, how legislation both affects and limits us to what we can do, and really the dependency that we have on property tax and our inability to have other revenue sources. That really was something that I had to grasp with.